My name is Sister Catherine Donovan, and for as long as I can remember, my life has been devoted to God. Born and raised in Charleston, South Carolina, I entered the convent at the age of 20, drawn by an unshakable faith and a desire to serve. The world outside these sacred walls changed rapidly, but inside, life was peaceful, structured, rooted in prayer and devotion. I woke up every day before dawn, my feet touching the cold wooden floor of my small, humble room. The air was always crisp in the early hours, the silence broken only by the distant tolling of the monastery bells. My days were filled with prayer, study, and service to the community. I found joy in the quiet moments, kneeling in the chapel, my hands folded in deep prayer, or tending to the sick at the local hospital. Yet, in recent years I had felt something stirring deep inside me. A sense of urgency I couldn't explain. A whisper in my soul, a call to pray more fervently, to be more attentive. The world seemed to be shifting in ways I did not understand. Even among the sisters, there was a feeling of unrest, an awareness that something profound was unfolding. Then there were the dreams. I began experiencing vivid visions, dreams that felt too real to be dismissed as mere figments of the imagination. I saw great darkness covering the earth, a shadow creeping through cities, and people walking aimlessly, their faces devoid of hope. I saw flames in the sky, and I heard a voice that filled my entire being with both sorrow and love. Prepare. Time is short. I woke up each night drenched in sweat, gasping for air. I never spoke of these dreams to anyone. Not because I feared ridicule. I had lived long enough to understand that some things must be kept between the soul and God, but because I did not yet understand their meaning. Then came the day that changed everything. It was a late afternoon in October, and I had been feeling unwell for weeks. An unexplained weakness that left me breathless even with the smallest tasks. I had ignored it, attributing it to exhaustion. But that day, as I stood in the chapel lighting candles for those in need, a sudden wave of dizziness overcame me. My vision blurred, the candle in my hand slipping through my fingers, and I collapsed onto the cold stone floor. The last thing I heard before everything faded to black was the distant sound of the sisters rushing toward me, their voices muffled and filled with concern. Then silence. A silence deeper than anything I had ever known. But death was not the end. It was only the beginning. Before we continue with this incredible testimony, I want to invite you to become part of our community. If this story has moved you so far, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like. This way, you help us bring more powerful testimonies like this to thousands of people who need to hear them. Also, I want to mention you in our next video. Comment your name and city below, and in our next testimony, we will send you a special message. Imagine hearing your name spoken before thousands of people. Your moment to be part of something greater. Comment now. There was no pain, no fear, no sense of time. The moment my body collapsed onto the chapel floor, I was immediately pulled into something beyond this world. It was as if I had been gently lifted from the weight of my physical body, released from the burdens of sickness, exhaustion, and limitation. A warm current wrapped around me, and I felt myself rising, not through space, but through something deeper, greater, eternal. First, there was only light. A brightness unlike anything I had ever seen before, yet it did not hurt my eyes. It was alive, pulsating with an energy that filled me with overwhelming peace. For the first time in my life, I understood what it meant to be truly free. Not just free of earthly concerns, but free from the weight of human imperfection. Every doubt, every sorrow, every fleeting anxiety that had ever touched my heart was gone. In its place was pure love. Then I began to hear music, but it was not music as we know it. It was the sound of the heavens themselves, a harmony that resonated through every fiber of my being. Voices, celestial and pure, singing in tones beyond human comprehension. It was as if the entire universe was alive with worship, and I was now part of it. I was not alone. I felt a presence near me, a being of indescribable light and holiness. Though I could not see his face at first, I knew without a doubt who it was. The very essence of his presence filled me with awe, love, and a reverence so deep that I could not stand before him. Then he spoke. "Sister Catherine, come." The voice was neither loud nor soft, but it carried absolute authority. It resonated in my very soul, drawing me forward. As I moved closer, the brightness took form, and suddenly I was standing before him. His presence was everything, more radiant than the sun, yet not blinding. His robe shone with a purity that made even the whitest snow seem dim. And his eyes held eternity. In them I saw compassion, sorrow, joy, and infinite understanding all at once. I fell to my knees, overwhelmed by who he was. Without speaking, he reached out his hand and lifted me up. The mere touch of his fingers filled me with indescribable warmth, a love so powerful it was as if my very soul was being remade in that moment. I wanted to stay there forever. But then something changed. The light around us shifted, and suddenly, I was no longer standing in the brilliance of heaven. Instead, I was looking down upon the world below, the earth turning slowly beneath us. And as I watched, a great sorrow entered his gaze. "Do you see?" he asked, his voice no longer just filled with love, but with a deep sadness. First, I did not understand what he meant. But then I saw the world as I had never seen it before. There was suffering, so much suffering. I saw nations in turmoil, families broken apart, people lost and searching. And among them I saw the church. My heart clenched. Something was wrong. There was a darkness creeping into places that should have been filled with light. I saw leaders struggling, their spirits burdened, their faith tested. And then my eyes were drawn to a specific place, Rome. My breath caught in my throat. The Vatican. I felt the weight of something I could not yet understand, a revelation I was not yet ready to receive. Jesus turned to me. His expression filled with both love and urgency. "You must return. I want to mention you in our next video. Comment your name and city below, and in our next testimony, we will send you a special message. Imagine hearing your name spoken before thousands of people. Your moment to be part of something greater. Comment now." I didn't want to leave. Standing before Jesus, surrounded by the warmth of his presence, I felt complete in a way I had never known before. There was no longing, no fear. Only a deep understanding that I was exactly where I was meant to be. But his words echoed within me. "You must return." I opened my mouth to protest, but before I could speak, the vision before me changed. The earth that had been turning so peacefully beneath us was now filled with turmoil. I saw fires rising, shadows spreading across cities, and the hearts of many growing cold. But it was not just the world. It was the church itself that bore the weight of this darkness. I saw great halls once filled with prayer now echoing with uncertainty. I saw shepherds faltering, their spirits weary under the burdens they carried. And at the center of it all, I saw one man, an aged figure standing in the midst of it, his shoulders hunched as if bearing the weight of the world. I knew who he was. Pope. His hands trembled as he held onto his staff. His breathing was heavy, and though he stood within the heart of the church, I could see it. A shadow was creeping toward him, an unseen battle raging just beyond the veil of the physical world. Something was wrong. I turned to Jesus, my heart racing. "What is happening?" I asked, my voice trembling. His eyes held mine, and in them I saw profound sorrow. "The time is near," he said. "The church must awaken. My people must pray." And then he showed me. A vision unfolded before me. The Vatican, shrouded in an eerie silence. The streets around St. Peter's Square were empty, the air thick with something unseen but deeply felt. Inside, I saw figures whispering in hushed tones, decisions being made behind closed doors. And in the midst of it, the Pope, his hands clasped in prayer, his face lined with exhaustion. I felt it, a great shift approaching, something that would shake the church to its core. "But why me?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "What can I do?" Jesus placed his hand on my shoulder, and in that instant, peace flooded through me. "You have seen. Now you must tell them." I felt the truth of his words settle deep into my soul. I had been shown these things for a reason. It was not for me to remain in the comfort of this divine presence but to return, to be a witness, to sound the alarm, to remind the world that the time of complacency was over. Before I could say another word, before I could even think to plead for more time, I felt myself being pulled away. The warmth of heaven began to fade, and in its place, a growing sense of heaviness returned. And then I fell. Not like one falls in a dream, not with a sudden jolt, but with a slow, undeniable pull of gravity, as if being lowered back into the weight of the world. The light around me dimmed, the music of the heavens faded into silence, and then, gasp, air filled my lungs again. My eyes flew open, and I found myself staring at a blinding hospital light. The sterile scent of antiseptic filled my nostrils, and I heard the muffled voices of nurses scrambling around me. My chest ached, my limbs felt heavy, but I was alive. And I remembered everything. The sharp, sterile light above me felt wrong, too harsh, too distant from the warmth I had just known. My body was heavy, my lungs burned as if they had been starved of air, and the distant hum of monitors filled my ears. I had returned. The hospital room was cold, unfamiliar. Tubes ran from my arms, machines beeped beside me, and the faint murmur of nurses outside my door reminded me that I was back in the physical world. But my heart knew the truth, a truth so overwhelming that for a moment I couldn't breathe. I had been with him. I had stood before Jesus Christ. I had heard his voice, felt the unimaginable love that radiated from him. And I had seen the vision, a vision so urgent, so filled with sorrow, that it still echoed in my soul. The Pope, his struggle, his burden. The darkness creeping toward the church. The warning Jesus had given me. A weak groan left my lips, and almost instantly, the door swung open. "Sister Catherine, you're awake." The familiar voice belonged to Mother Agnes, the head of our convent. She rushed to my side, her aged hands trembling as they reached for mine. Behind her, a doctor stood, his eyes widening in disbelief as he checked the monitors. You were gone," Mother Agnes whispered, tears pooling in her eyes. "We thought we lost you." I tried to speak, but my throat was dry. The doctor poured me a small cup of water, and I sipped slowly, my body still weak. "How long?" I finally managed to ask. Mother Agnes hesitated before answering. 3 days. I blinked. 3 days. I had been dead for 3 days. I could see it in their eyes. The disbelief, the quiet reverence, the fear of what my survival could mean. But there was no fear in me. Only certainty. "I saw him," I whispered, gripping Mother Agnes's hand. "I stood before him. And he sent me back with a message." Her lips parted in shock, and the doctor, who had been staring at the monitors in stunned silence, turned toward me. "A message," she repeated. I nodded, my heart pounding. "The Pope." My voice trembled, but I continued. "Something is coming. Something is wrong. And the church must prepare." Silence filled the room. Mother Agnes's expression darkened, as if she knew, deep in her heart, that I was telling the truth. The doctor took a slow step back, looking at me with an unreadable expression. Perhaps he thought my mind had been affected by my time away. But Mother Agnes, she believed me. "Tell me everything," she whispered. And so I did. I spoke of the light, the love, the overwhelming peace of heaven. I described how I had seen the earth from above, how Jesus had shown me the darkness creeping toward the Vatican, how the Pope stood alone, weighed down by a burden unseen by most. Jesus said his people must pray, I told her, my voice firm despite the weakness of my body. He said the time is near. We must wake up. Tears spilled down Mother Agnes's cheeks, and she nodded as if a long-buried fear had just been confirmed. I didn't yet know what this vision meant for the world. I didn't know how much time we had. But one thing was certain. I had not returned by accident. I want to mention you in our next video. Comment your name and city below, and in our next testimony, we will send you a special message. Imagine hearing your name spoken before thousands of people. Your moment to be part of something greater. Comment now. And if you're here with us, don't forget to leave a like. It helps our community grow and allows us to share more testimonies like this with the world. The weight of what I had seen pressed upon me like a storm cloud waiting to break. Even as my body remained weak, recovering from its journey between life and death, my soul felt stronger than ever. The vision would not leave me. It replayed over and over in my mind, each detail seared into my spirit like fire. Pope. The darkness. The warning. I had been sent back for a reason. But what was I supposed to do? How could one simple nun, an aging woman who had spent her life in quiet service, carry a message of such magnitude? Yet I knew I had to act. Mother Agnes sat by my bedside that evening, her rosary clutched tightly in her hands, her eyes never leaving mine. It was as if she, too, felt the shift, the urgency in the air. God does not reveal things without purpose, she said softly, her voice laced with both awe and fear. If he has sent you back, it is because you are meant to speak. I swallowed hard. But who would listen? Mother Agnes hesitated, but only for a moment. The church must listen. The church. 4 years I had served quietly, obediently. I had never sought attention, never felt the need to speak beyond the whispered prayers that left my lips daily. But now I was being called to something greater. That night, as I lay in my hospital bed, I prayed. Not the kind of prayer I had spoken all my life. Prayers of routine, of quiet devotion. No, this was different. This was a prayer of urgency, of pleading. Lord, what do you want me to do? The room around me was silent, but deep within I felt him. Not as a voice, not as an overwhelming presence, but as a quiet conviction settling in my heart. I had to go to Rome. The realization sent a shiver through me. I didn't know how, and I didn't know who I would speak to, but I knew I had to go. The next morning I told Mother Agnes. Her eyes widened, but she did not question me. Instead she nodded. The Lord will make a way, she said simply. And he did. 2 weeks later, still weak but strengthened in faith, I stepped off a plane in Rome, Italy. The air was thick with the scent of history and incense, the cobblestone streets beneath my feet unfamiliar yet strangely welcoming. I had come with no plan, no appointment, no certainty. Only the weight of what I had seen and the faith that God would open the doors that needed to be opened. And he did. The moment my feet touched Vatican soil, I felt it again. The pull, the purpose, the certainty. I was exactly where I was meant to be. What I did not yet know was that someone was already waiting for me. The Vatican felt different. It wasn't just the grand halls or the sacred air that surrounded St. Peter's Basilica. It was something deeper, something spiritual. The very stones beneath my feet seemed to hum with the weight of centuries of faith and prayer, yet I could sense a shift, something unseen yet undeniable. I walked through the towering corridors, my worn habit marking me as just another nun among many. No one paid me any special attention, and yet, I felt a presence watching me. I wasn't alone. A man in a black cassock, his face lined with age and wisdom, approached me. He did not ask why I was there. He already knew. Sister Catherine, he said, his voice gentle but firm. You have come a long way. I stopped in my tracks. How do you know my name? A small smile touched his lips. You are not the only one who has seen. The words sent a shiver down my spine. I had come expecting resistance. Skepticism. Instead, I had been recognized, awaited. The message I carried was not mine alone. He gestured for me to follow. There is someone who wishes to speak with you. I had no idea what awaited me beyond those great doors. But I knew one thing. I was walking toward destiny. I want to mention you in our next video. Comment your name and city below. And in our next testimony, we will send you a special message. Imagine hearing your name spoken before thousands of people. Your moment to be part of something greater. Comment now. And if you're here with us, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to our community. We don't make any money doing this. We do it because we love sharing these powerful testimonies. Your like and subscription help us reach more people who need to hear these stories. Thank you for being part of this journey with us. The doors opened, and I stepped into a dimly lit chamber. A single candle flickered on the desk before me, casting shadows against the towering bookshelves filled with centuries of sacred texts. Behind the desk sat a man whose face was deeply lined with both age and wisdom. The cardinal. I knew without being told that he was one of the Pope's closest advisors. His gaze met mine with a mixture of curiosity and reverence, as if he could already sense the weight of what I carried. "Sister Catherine," he greeted me softly. "You have been sent here." He nodded. "I have seen. I have been with him. And he has sent me back with a warning." He motioned for me to sit. "Tell me everything." And so I did. I spoke of the light, the love, the unimaginable peace of heaven. I told him of Jesus standing before me, showing me the suffering of the world, the burden upon the Pope, and the darkness creeping toward the Church. I described how I had watched the Vatican from above, witnessing shadows move where light should be, how I had felt the urgency in Christ's voice when he told me, "You must return." As I spoke, the cardinal's face grew pale. When I finished, he was silent for a long time. Then finally he sighed. "You are not the first," he whispered. The words made my breath catch. "Others have seen." He nodded, his eyes filled with something I could not quite name. Grief, urgency, faith all woven together. "The Holy Father knows," he admitted. "He has felt it too. But there are forces at play. Forces that work against the light." A chill ran down my spine. "What can we do?" Yes. The cardinal's gaze hardened. "We pray. We remain vigilant. And we do what Christ has asked of us. We prepare his people." His words settled in my heart. I knew that my mission was not just to deliver this message to Rome. It was to deliver it to the world. Jesus had not sent me back to be silent. I had seen what was coming. And now, I had to warn those who still had time to listen. I rose to my feet, feeling the weight of divine purpose settle over me. This was just the beginning. If this testimony has touched your heart, I want to invite you to continue this journey with us. There is another video waiting for you, one that will be even more revealing for your life. Click on the video appearing on your screen now. It's time to go deeper. And before you go, don't forget to leave a like and comment amen below. Let's fill this community with faith and light. Your engagement helps spread these messages to more people who need to hear them. God bless you.